What up, Squadron? Welcome back. The old fellas in the scene are here once more. So, yeah, how you doing, guys? Good to see all the names in the chat. Mr. Rooter, I believe it's not Rutter, and George Daz, Prezi, and of course Mr. Lewis as well, my switcheroo arch nemesis. So we've got another ACCL Division 2 game, guys, this evening. And Mr. 39 dropping in as well with the big guns. FBG Melon up against Prima ESport. For anyone who doesn't know Prima, they were previously in Division 3. But they've managed to work their way up towards Division 2, and they looked very good in Division 3. Obviously, Pablo, you've not cast them, have you? I don't believe. Potentially...
team, no.
No, so this will be an interesting marker for you. I'm interested to see how they get on against FBG, to be fair, because it's a slightly different roster. As Lewis pointed out, Mr. Moosh has had a rebrand of FBG Melon. He's got a brand new set of 3 players, I believe, with him. And I don't think you've casted the FBG Melon boys either, if I'm correct in saying.
Literally, the only player that I've cast over is Zampi from Prima.
Yeah, so I'm going to leave you to this one to make your minds up on how these two unfold. I'm going to, again, just pass the responsibility over to you once more, as you know I love doing. But yeah, so guys, this Division 2 game is scheduled for 7 o'clock, so we're just waiting on invites to come through. But while we are waiting on the invites to come through, we've also had some news from Mr. Prezi on a few new rosters. Pabs, is there one that you want to pick up straight away for the next season of Division 1?
Well, obviously we can talk about the defending champions, I guess, in F. and Smudge. They've picked up a player, not Jacko, and obviously waiting on one more. So Vitalized Black roster looking solid as ever. So yeah, I guess you've got to look to those guys, but they've got some genuine competition coming into the Super League now, so yeah, quite a few teams just heavily stacked. And I guess we one of our favorites, obviously we do love to see Vega play, so it's nice to see him in and around another four-man with Vitalized as well, so be interesting to see how they shape up. And again, mate, we've got to say that there's a very interesting team that's entered with a few recognisable names as well.
Yeah, so we've got Milkers, who are Nako UB. That's a name that we've cast over a few times, probably when he filled in for Mistaken Identity, I believe it was. Naughty, and then we've got the return of Smithy from that Clarity Red roster, so it's obviously good to have him back as well on the sticks.
Yeah, you're looking at Unbelievable Jeff as well. If you, for those who don't know, it does look like Destroy's making a bit of a comeback after his very controversial year in Cold War with Broken Scroggy. So yeah, it does look like we're going to see the return of some of the Dutch lads as well. But yeah, it should be super interesting to see how this pans out. And again, we're still probably a few teams still waited to. We're still in talks with. We're still in talks with. Prezi's in talks with to try and twist the arm of a few of the higher tier guys to come in and just raise the profile a little bit. It's going to be a really, really good league. It's going to be great to watch. It's going to be great to cast over, so it should be very exciting, Major. Yeah, and obviously they've got more incentive now with that prize pool going up to $1,000, so there's a lot of money being played for in that Division 1. But I'll tell you what, Division 2 isn't too far behind in terms of some of the talented players that we get to see. In terms of
a neutral, especially when I was casting those Division 2 playoff games for a large bulk of them when you weren't feeling well. They were pretty much bangers. Every single series felt like it went game 5, if not a game 4. So there's a lot of competition in and around this league. And with Prima coming up from Division 3, I'm going to be very interested to see where they kind of land in this set of Div 2 teams, because they did look very, very good in Division 3.
Yeah, I mean, there was a weird split, I suppose, that week that I wasn't casting. The week before that, we couldn't get a game 5 for as hard as we tried, as hard as teams tried. It was like 3-0 after, 3-1, 3-0, time after time. So it was nice to see that little development in the way that people played Vanguard. Obviously, I think it was to do with, choosing the right map sets. I think Desert Siege started to blossom a little bit during that period as well. So it became more of a preferred map. Obviously, I think as well, Bocage is slowly but surely, disappearing from a lot of the rotations that we see in the series that are chosen. So people really don't like Bocage hardpoint. It just doesn't allow for even really good teams to dominate. It's still, the games can be still quite close. It's really difficult to get any, like, 3 pieces are just few and far between, unless you have a spectacular game or someone is spectacularly bad. So yeah, it's been an interesting development, and it carries on. Obviously, we've seen the fact that finally Young Cretins kind of got done over in the last 2K, so you can see that there is some development, and hopefully, if they do get control fixed, we're going to see either a new map or 2 drop in the DLC that can be rotated into the comp set, and hopefully see like a settled control, because right now it's wild to think, like, I think we're actually getting used to there not being a 3rd game mode. I'm kind of getting used to
it's like control. What's that? We don't really know what it is. Oh, and a huge shout out to Trippy for the Prime sub, and Lewis wants one of these from myself. I mean, I'll go first, Pabs, because it's mine. But the next one you got to take on. You know the drill by now. But Lewis coming through for the Sue. Thank you very much, Lewis. Apologies for the eardrums, guys. But yeah, so the maps for anyone who doesn't know for this series, which should be getting underway very, very shortly. I say we're still just waiting on invites to come through, and then we can get cracking. So this is how this next best of 5 in Division 2 is going to unfold. So we've got a double Blint right off the rip. We've then got Tuscan Hardpoint, Desert Siege Hardpoint, so that's managed to slip through, and then Tuscan Search and Destroy. So no Demiansky in this one, Pabs. A pretty standard map set, maybe without the Desert Siege in that.
No, I mean, the Desert Siege is kind of perfect because it's that 4th map, it's that outlier map.
Yeah.
It's breaking up what is ostensibly, the very kind of, like, obviously over large map that is Berlin, which lends itself to all those kind of crazy tactics that we see. And then we do get a little bit more of hyperactivity in Tuscan, but Desert Siege Hardpoint's always nice to throw in the rotation. It really is difficult. It's probably got like the highest amount of elevation in a game, so kind of like really does throw the cat among the pigeons. And if we do get to a game 5, Tuscan S&D is probably the best S&D we could ask for.
Yeah, and Pabs, your good comrade Mr. George has redeemed a C, and he's requesting it from yours truly. So you can love a few of those. I know it pays you every time, and because George knows, because we know what George is like, if he knows it's going to pain you, he's saving those points up and redeeming them. But so we're still just waiting on invites to come through. I believe the guys are still just waiting on who's going to actually host. I think they're going to find out who's hosting out of the 2 teams. We're pretty much ready to go whenever. But yeah, Pabs, I want to touch on the old kickoff, which is going to be starting soon. Is it this weekend, the kickoff tournament?
Yep.
So
tomorrow,
it'll be
tomorrow.
Get watching that. Still the strats. And,
have you not done your kickoff classic prediction?
No, I haven't. I haven't done
the
it.
website.
No. I'm terrible with those kind of things.
100% know that it's going to be Royal Ravens versus Toronto Ultra in the final, and I'm not having anyone say any different. Don't be giving me your phases. Don't be giving me your Septic Dallas or whatever they're called, Septic Texas. It's not going to be happening at all. It's going to be Afro versus Bance, and that's it. Trey versus Bance. So that's what I'm down for. I'm here for an all EU final. I won't have any difference said. Probably going to have to say the FaZe is going to get there in the end, because they probably still light years ahead of everyone else.
Yeah.
But it's going to be great to see. It's just going to be great to see some of the highest level Call of Duty in the world again, man. I'm proper excited for it.
Yeah, and I think even regardless of how good, say, like FaZe have been over the couple of years, it's still a case of you're never really 100% certain of what you're going to get with certain teams. Obviously, Toronto last year, nobody really considered them for much disrespect on the EU boys, but they came out of nowhere last year in terms of actually getting right to the top with a lot of performances, a lot of big wins. Obviously, the one that pains them right at the end, obviously down into champs, but as a roster, they did very, very well. So obviously, we're all praying that they'll come back again this year and be very, very good as well. But with Vanguard, you can never... It's really difficult to be 100% certain on who's going to be good and who's not necessarily going to be.
Yeah. Again, it's going to be, really tricky because the changes in the game have been so dramatic. I think we just got to remember last year the Toronto Hunters just chopped and changed players quite drastically in the first half of the season. It wasn't... I think it was Major 5 where they really stepped up and started to play really well. So, it just goes to show as well the teams at the start of a season can just look absolute trash, and then by the end of the thing it can be a completely different kettle of fish. So who knows? I mean, we've got high hopes for London Royal Ravens. It's a solid young side who are very hungry to win. And I'm definitely talking about the best 4 players that have come out of the EU in a while. So I'm just super excited to see how they get on, and obviously still kind of excited to see how Toronto get on because they've just done everything right. They've done everything right as a team, as an organization. They're like content, just like top tier. They're just awesome. So I'm really hoping those 2 teams still do well this year. If we're going to talk about it sensibly, it's a tricky one. It'd be nice to see how the rookies get on this year. The guys who come up from challenges like Sib, and we've just seen LA Thieves they've picked up Pentagram. So again, we think he's back in.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting just to see how the players who've been picked up from challenges get on as well. So I'm super excited for that.
Yeah, I'm really, really happy for Pentagram. I know Alan, especially I Hold Shift, he really bangs the drum for Pentagram as a player. And there's a lot of players over in that NA challenges that, I mean, we complain about the EU lads not getting a shot, but I mean, with the pool of players in NA is how big it is, and obviously they see them a lot more frequently than we do. From what they're saying, there's a lot of talent over in NA that needs to get a shot, and hopefully if Pentagram does happen to fill in or get a shot and manages to take it, again, it's going to be another potential catalyst for some of these organisations to start looking down at the challenger scene and potentially picking a few players from them, because there's a few obviously this year on the likes of London Ravens in Gizmo, those kind of boys that you want to really see do well, because now they've got the shot. It's now a case of, right, okay, now you need to prove it, because like with the likes of Steve Vortex, obviously he went up, had his shot, didn't really pan out for him 100%, and then he's not really had a sniff since, which has been arguably really, really unfair on his part, because he's definitely deserved another crack at the whip. But it's just a case of when you get there, you've really got to hit the ground running.
Yeah, and I think that's obviously... I had this conversation today as well. Obviously, we had the conversation about Steve Vortex, and it was, he was unfortunate in World War II to have the kind of performance he did, and he'll say it himself that it's unfairly followed him around quite badly, and that's a shame. But at the end of the day, like, he's done everything in his power to do better, and to go further and go beyond probably what people would say is deserving of a shot in the CDL. But again, he's just got to do it again this year. So he picks and chooses his fights really sensibly as well. He doesn't overextend himself in terms of what he does. So you would hope that he'll have another outstanding season this year, as it really does only get underway now, I suggest. But yeah, one thing again that a point you just made, which is a good shout as well, is as much as it's exciting to see the guys who come up from the AM, it's also going to be interesting to see how these orgs watch them and see how they perform, because ultimately as well, they cost so much less than rehiring a seasoned pro who might be on a really expensive contract. So if the rookies do really well, there's an opportunity there for the next year's rookies to be able to potentially just become a free-for-all, while they say, like, well, why would we pick up a player who hasn't won a major in 2 years, is in the CDL, but is not performing and costing us, 30, 40, 50k a month, when we can pick up a relative newcomer, a rookie who's hungry for it, who could potentially, win us things, and isn't going to cost a fraction of that. So it could be an interesting season the way this pans out. Yeah,
and it's, as much as you don't like to kind of crap on the names that do eventually drop down, there have been a few. Obviously, I'm not going to name any particular player, but you think, oh, finally somebody else has got a shot. Obviously, with the likes of Slack now going over towards like the analyst side of things, that's opened a gap on his spot. But then other players have also been dropped and let go. So it's not a case of off.
What you're trying to say is the fat lads retiring.
No. I tell you what, I would love to be able to cast over the man who you absolutely butchered on our first Challenger stream in Haggy, but Yeah, I mean, it's a shame when you do get some of those players that obviously are still in AmCod that just decide it's not for me. Obviously, we've had Haggy. Was it Bids as well? Dropped out. So we've had a few names really that have kind of had enough.
I think it's fair to say that Sensor probably should have just dropped out at some point.
Yeah.
Boy, Major, just put you on the spot there. Listen, I'm going to have it out now, but you know what? Like, Sensor this week had a pop at a player called Visitox saying that he was cheating, right? When it was all over kind of like NA Twitter, right? Visitox used to play for Reactor 4 Gaming. It's so weird.
Really?
It's so yeah. We used to play with them. So I used to actually be able to play back in the day, believe it or not. And we used to play with Visitox in Triple Threat Gaming. And then when Triple Threat broke up, when I formed Reactor 4 Gaming, we picked Visitox up. And to be fair, at that point, I wasn't capable of keeping up with him. But he was on PlayStation at the time, and he was still dropping absolute bombs on everyone he played. Like, you couldn't touch him. Like, he was miles ahead of everyone else. Like, it was ridiculous and embarrassing at times watching him absolutely destroy players and teams, you know, single-handedly. So yeah, the idea that he's cheating is interesting to say the least, because we've seen him first-hand footage of him and what he can do, and played alongside him, and know that he's a beast. I'm literally going off Phil saying that it was definitely the Visitox that we had at R4G though. I think it is.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where it's like whenever you break in or have a good game against a very good team, instantly people are going to start pointing fingers, especially if they don't know who you are. You can't really avoid it. It's one of those things that kind of comes with it, and I think you just have to push through it. I mean, we saw it with Felix in FDOT in Cold War when he came pretty much out of nowhere, to be fair to him, and he was on I think it was one of the R4G, not R4G, Real Gaming rosters. I think it was Real Gaming White or Purple, something like that. And he was frying in that division, and instantly everyone was like, walls, red boxes, walls. And he just had to kind of go through that phase of pushing himself to monitor cam every single day. It's a ball ache, but I've got to do it. And he, again, in Vanguard, when he played Luti's lot, people were like, okay. And he had to kind of, again, another hurdle that he had to kind of jump over and go through. It's just part of the process, it feels now, which is a shame to say.
You see that though. I mean, we've seen it this week. I mean, I've seen high AM players come out of defeats and immediately be tilted, and it's a straight away. It's they could only have possibly done so well based on the fact that they're hacking in some way or gaining some advantage in some way. We've seen it this week. I think Denza threw some clips out about Infinity FPS as well. So you're seeing it quite a lot, and I think this year is going to be super interesting. And as we see this transition between there actually being a pipeline for players from the ACCL being able to get kind of scrims and get noticed by players from the kind of, what would you call them, the regular bubble of top AM that we've seen over the last few years. So yeah, this could be an interesting year, and we're seeing transitions already happen. So as the ACCL starts to get bigger and bigger and starts to offer more money as well, you know, there's no way Prezi is always going to look to try and be inclusive of the players and teams that come through the ACCL. I don't think he's ever going to want to exclude them, even if it is the highest level of league. He's always going to want to get them involved in some way. So yeah, it's not going away, that's for certain. So if you are a high level AM player watching, you know, we're coming for you.
Yeah, I think as well, like it's another good thing about having the community is that you've got a lot of backing for some of these players when they do get called out. That a lot of players who have played against them or played with them can literally categorically say no, like they're definitely not cheating.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let me just
that's it. That's the thing, though. You know, you there's enough people who will be around these players that have played with them and will be able to say, nah, it's not the case, they've been on console and done that well or whatever. But it is what it is, and it's unfortunate. You know, there is this shout to bring back COD to console. It's not going to happen. It's just gonna, Microsoft has just bought Call of Duty. They're not going to cut out, you know, 70% of this income stream by saying it's going back to console. There is absolutely no way. We're going to have to get used to the idea that it's on PC, and it's just going to need to be dealt with in terms of in terms of dealing with the hackers. One thing we might suggest is that Microsoft might be one of the few companies in the world who are going to be able to develop software that can deal with that kind of thing. Whether they're going to input those resources to do that is another thing, because obviously from their perspective, from the boardroom perspective, you know, in terms of the money COD makes on a casual basis, it's enormous, and COD is a tiny drop in the ocean. People can talk about $300 million leagues, but you're talking about $1 billion game. Do you know what I mean? So these are hugely separate figures, and I don't know. It's just, you know, you would hope it's good news coming out of next year, but we're probably not going to see the benefits of that for a little bit of time. But hopefully, maybe 2023 we'll see a change of fortunes.
Yeah, and we are now loading into Berlin. And another disclaimer, guys: if the stream does die, don't worry, he'll be back straight away as soon as possible. COD can have a tendency of killing OBS sometimes, so fingers crossed we're not going to have
just
that
this last
issue.
Week or so, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know why it's been doing it. It's been a really weird one. And quick shout as well to Lynx and to Zosma for the follows. But we're just waiting now on everyone to get in the lobby. I'm not sure if one of the players might potentially be having an issue because we're in, but nothing is really happening. There you go. God bless Vanguard. We're gonna have to have another crack at that one.
It's like week 2 all over again.
Yeah, literally. It's just, oh man. I mean, every time they update something, it always feels like something's going to break, and I get really worried whenever there's been an update. And I think there has been another update on Vanguard, because I had to restart my game just a second ago. So I'm praying it's not gonna screw us. But hopefully we get a really good series here between these two. For any of you guys who are just joining us, this is Division 2, and we're back in the group stages for Season 2 of the ACCL divisions. But yeah, Pablo, I mean, I suppose because you don't really know a huge amount of them, if I was to say stick your flag, it's kind of a case of flip a coin and pick a colour, really, for you.
Yeah, literally, yeah, because there's, I mean, I literally have only cast over Zampi a couple of times, and he's played well in both the handful of times I've cast over him. But yeah, I mean, the thing I would suggest is FBG, the guys at FBG seem to know what to do, and I'm sure Moose is going to be of a decent quality as well. So FBG, and we've seen them play a few times, have got decent sides. Obviously 39 and Co have been on the struggle bus, but they've competed really well. It just results haven't gone their way. And Prima ESport coming from Division 3 up to Division 2, so it's always nice to see this kind of like progression in teams, and always nice to see how they'll perform in the league. So, you know, I'm not going to plant a flag, mate. There's just no point. I mean, it literally would just be a blind bet, but you would suspect maybe that the guys from Division 3 have got a lot to prove, but FBG could do with a win. So
yeah, the one thing I will say is when I watched Prima play RAF, they gave them good games on Search as well, and we know what RAF are like on Search and Destroy, so they're a very good unit of players, Prima, and obviously they managed to get through.
I watched you cast that.
Yeah, I think you might have been in the chat.
Yeah, I definitely watched you cast it, because it was like really weird to watch Terry have like a really, really bad S&D game. I was like, what's he doing? Mr. Yogurt.
And, well, I mean, we're in, but I think we might be having issues again with Call of Duty. I pray this isn't going to be the issue all game. Yeah, Prima have only got the players, so I think we are having an issue maybe with one of the guys. Yeah, we're going to see a restart. Never mind. So, back to us. But yeah, it's one where Prima, they look like a very solid outfit, and I don't think they've changed the roster, if memory serves me well. So they've got that kind of consistency, whereas FBG Melon, they've got a different roster to what we've been used to seeing with the boys of Lewis and that siding with Moose, and now Moose has kind of gone his own way and got another set of 3 players in. So if you could argue that FBG Melon on paper, where they've been in Division 2 before, might be a slightly level up above Prima, because they've got kind of that teamwork already cemented. It's one where they might be able to give them a good series here, and it wouldn't surprise me if they come out and do really well against FBG Melon, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good shout. I mean, the chemistry and the cohesion of a team can obviously play a massive part in how well they do. So yeah, that could be a shout as well. They might take the boys from FBG completely by surprise. I'm pretty certain both teams are going into this with, they're not going to be any complacency. They're just going to want to play their game. But again, Berlin does separate the wheat from the chaff. So the one thing we might suggest is that the team that wins this potentially will be the team that goes on to win. I'm sure there's a statistic to back that up somewhere. But yeah, obviously it's a big match map as well. So a team that isn't quite as on point and doesn't get their comms correct and isn't as coherent would probably struggle anyway. So be interesting to see. I think potentially the winner of Berlin Hardpoint could go on to just to rock the 3-0 quite easily. We'll see how it goes. Obviously, we would like to see a Desert Siege because it's such an interesting map to cast over because of the that's so weird P1 to P2 is just it's such an odd transition. So yeah, we get that like probably the weirdest kill in Call of Duty history, and in that Desert Siege P1, it's so odd. So yeah, I'll be excited if we get that far. That'll be decent.
Well, I mean, at the moment, I'm excited to see if we can get far enough to get into map 1. I mean, they're loading in for the third time, so fingers crossed. I think we might have to see some game restarts. Obviously, I'll do that as well, just to remove any issues, because I think, again, it's going to be another issue with Prima ESport. It doesn't look as though 2 of their players are loading in, which is a bit of a shame. And Mr. Ollie's dropped in to see who needs banning. But yeah, I think we're going to see another restart. So apologies for the delay, guys. The game was due to start at 7, but with the way things are going at the moment, Vanguard's having a bit of a shitter at the moment. So hopefully we can get it underway shortly. But yeah, Control, Pablo, I don't think we're not seeing it in the kickoff tournament, are we? Or are we?
I'm not sure about the kickoff classic. I don't know whether it's been adopted into that, but I've already seen talk of it not being included in the elite quals. They're already saying they don't particularly want to scrim it. They don't think it works still. And no one wants to play Gavutu twice in the series if they have to. So it's not something we've seen. I don't think we've had the 2 Gavutu series yet. It's definitely not favoured, and I think Bocage is going the same way. So I don't know. I'd be surprised to see it in the Elite. It got announced so late and gave the team so little time to prep for it. I think it might be a mistake. Whether they stick to the game battles plan of just doing 2 S&Ds, though, is again, I think that's going to be...
Well, it's 3 S&Ds, isn't it, for game battles rules? It's the only reason we're seeing 3 hard points is from GAs,
Yeah, that's what I meant. The 2 like
okay, got
it. 2 back to back. Yeah, sorry. But yeah, that's what I mean. So that whether we see that 3 S&D method is probably most likely, because I'm guessing the higher level, the CDL will probably stick to that kind of play. But I think that could be a bad move. I'd rather see the 2 hard points, because you're just going to get like at least. I think the hard points tell a tale of a team better than the S&D. You can get lucky in S&D. You can react quite quickly. It's just, obviously it's got, I don't know, people, obviously players prefer it because it's got a higher level of strategy. But I don't know. I just prefer hard point because I like casting over it. So maybe I'm biased.
Well, I mean, Seawolf's actually put a question in about asking about the opinion for Microsoft buying, obviously, Activision for, was it 68 billion? I think it was in the end. Was the price. Obviously there was the thing going around on Twitter, wasn't there, with the whole leaks of, oh, this is what they're doing. I mean, it looks as though that is complete bollocks, but yeah, it's a move potentially in the right direction for COD, and it's something refreshing that we might have needed for a while.
Yeah, I definitely think needed to come out of Activision's hands now. I think they've looked at it from a weird perspective for so long, and the idea that it's taken everyone by surprise. I mean, once that lawsuit was made public, the one from California against Blizzard and Activision, I think every big company that had that kind of deep pockets would definitely have put a bid in, or at least open talk. So Sony would have known about it, Nintendo would have known about it, you know, the big like Google, Facebook, Apple, who also are trying to enter the game market, would have known about it. It's just Microsoft have got the deepest pockets out of everyone, so it was a bit of a no-brainer. But I think it can only be a good thing. But I think obviously Microsoft are looking to go to a kind of cloud-based platform. Ultimately, they want to be like the Netflix of gaming. That's their idea. And obviously Google have tried it with Stadia and failed quite dramatically because the tech isn't there to support the streaming. But Microsoft are probably one of the few companies in the world who are well placed to change that. You know, whether they optimize software or whether they roll it out in new PCs or whatever, they're in the position. And as an American company, they'll look to take away the strength aspects of hardware development in China, because all the hardware is developed in China. So they'll be looking to try and circumvent that, so they'll get support from the American government and places like that. So it could only be a good thing. It's just whether they recognize just the kind of passion the COD's got compared to the money that the casual COD makes.
Yeah, and I'm hoping as well, if they've got obviously some deep pockets that they can dig into to try and invest something into a more stable kind of reliant anti-cheat. I mean, we've seen some clips, or I've seen some clips anyways, of the anti-cheat actually kicking in. I don't know if you've seen it, Pabs, of some of these guys that have aim bots, but they're getting bullet reg, and it's coming up with hit markers, but they're not actually doing any damage, which I find quite amusing, because it's like they're shooting automatic spud guns, which I find quite comical.
I think one of the problems with the anti-cheat that's come out of the Team Ricochet anti-cheat is that it's obviously being developed by the people who make the game, and that's not necessarily the best thing, because the range of cheats that are possible are obviously both hardware based in the terms of like strike packs and things like that, but also software based in the subscription services we see for walls and things like that. And it might be better in the hands of Microsoft, who will have a better idea of coding for client side and server side. So yeah, one of the things that they might build into the next CODs is that when you click your agree to terms and conditions, it's going to have like a program in there that would already circumvent your ability to use hacks within the game, or affect textures or whatever it does to develop the hack. So that could be a good thing. I just think there's too many types of hack right now. The Team Ricochet, that the Ricochet algorithm probably won't be able to deal with them all.
Yeah, this is the thing as well, because like the hacks are so like innovative now, and there's so many different types of them. It's really, it's like you've got to kind of find a solution, but then by the time you found the solution for it, another one comes out. It's like there's so many possibilities. Obviously, I don't know too much about the complexities of it, but I know how smart some of the people that put this stuff together are with regards to coding, because I know there's been previous games, and I think Call of Duty might have been one of them, where they physically offered somebody a job. Or it might have been something different, where somebody got off, basically a person who created hacks or hacked into something was offered a job by the company they hacked into in order to help them create an unhackable kind of barrier, because these people know so much about it that the people that are working for these developers aren't sometimes as clued up as the people that are physically creating the hacks and creating all these problems for the game.
That's because the hacks are generally client side, so they're based on the user's PC, and obviously with things like strike packs and that's hardware into the controller. But when it comes to these software based hacks, they're not server side, so it's more difficult for the developers to actually be able to implement, because they have to get the client to then agree to download the package an extra package that then deals with that, and that becomes like a minefield. And they got to bear in mind, these are game developers, they're not cybersecurity developers in any way, shape or form. So it might be better in the hands of Microsoft, who might be able to develop a more robust system, because they already deal with that kind of stuff. It just tells you a tale, if a company is having to hire someone who does hacks to be able to create an anti-cheat, it tells you just how understaffed or under-resourced they are to do that themselves. So yeah, I mean, it's wild, but that is one of the benefits that we might see from Microsoft, is that they're probably going to be in a better position to just usurp the client side problems we face with this. Whether that means that they just create a game that becomes virtually unhackable based on the lack of access to textures or whatever, or whether they just make it so that you can't have certain executables running while the game's running.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, however they go about doing it is it'd be interesting to see. But right now, obviously, it's vital, because the game's in the bin. Like, it's just every time the top team gets beat, it's because someone's hacking. Every time someone loses a money challenge, then it's because someone's hacking. And it's just become a parody almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And once again, guys, apologies for the delays. We're trying for the 5th time, I think. I have a feeling perhaps this update has killed private matches, which I am a little bit concerned about. Hopefully, I don't know. I really don't want to count my blessings here and think that this is going to be okay this time, because I don't think it looks as though it is. Yeah, it looks as though 2 of the Prima ESport lads just don't even join in whenever the lobby loads. So hopefully we can try and find a solution to it. But at the moment, guys, it looks as though they are really struggling to get anything going in this one. I'm not sure if it's a problem on the side of Prima ESport, because everyone else seems to be in from FBG Melon, but the boys of Prima don't seem to be actually lobbying in, which is a bit concerning. And there's a hell of a lot of dev errors for anyone who's wondering. Every time we try and lobby up, it's dev error booted, dev error booted. So hopefully we can get it sorted, but a little bit concerning, not gonna lie.
Man, that's the strongest anti-cheat of all time. Just can't play customs.
Yeah, that's a work around it. We'll just lock it off. Back to pubs for you boys.
It is what it is. That's wild, but yeah. And the other big talking point, mate. I mean, what is going on? Maven, No Maven.
Oh mate, yeah.
No Mr. Luca.
If Maven and Merc aren't, which it looks as though they're not, to be honest. It doesn't look like they're going to be having any involvement. I'll tell you what, whichever game they happen to move to, they're going to bring a huge chunk of the fan base with them. Because regardless of what game they cast, I literally watch a lot of the COD because of the personalities of the people that present it and cast it. As good as the game is to watch, a lot of the time I'll have it on in the background, and you hear the kind of them two joking and having a laugh about it. And to not have them two potentially back in is mind-blowing, because especially if now Microsoft have now taken over, surely their first protocol will be like, okay, we might want to get these two back on with us if possible.
Yeah, definitely. They really do need to have a look. I mean, we already kind of had this conversation privately about the kinds of casters they have picked up, and that there has probably been a kind of that some of the quality hasn't been great in terms of, like, this isn't me having a go at the casters because some of them I haven't seen cast, but to have picked them up in replacement of Maven and Merc is insane. Like, you're talking about, like, I mean, Maven's like the first caster we grew up with before, you know, it was him and Courage for so long, and I don't know, it's just really odd, and I just think it's not going to be the same COD. He's got like a gravitas that none of the other casters have got. He's like the dad of COD almost. When it comes to you watching them live streams from like the different arenas when the lambs were on, it's just not going to be the same. And I know Miles is like awesome. He's really done a good job of taking over.
Yeah.
But like it's totally different, like as an in-game caster, to being the person that just completely looks after the arena, looks after the whole live feed, and kind of bounces it back and forth. Maven's going to be a huge loss, and I think people are going to feel it when his absence more than anything else.
Yeah, and just a quick shout out to Charlie and Ips for the follows. Yeah, apologies guys. It looks as though the two players on Prima are having the issues out of everyone, so I'm not quite sure. We'll obviously try and keep you guys posted as we go. Hopefully they can sort it out as soon as possible. But yeah, from what you were saying, Pabs, I mean, it's like people say, well, we've still got Miles and Chance. And yeah, that is brilliant that they've managed to keep hold of them. Because, I mean, if they didn't have those two either, I would have been incredibly worried. And Mr. Matty with the C, thank you, May. But yeah, the stuff that Merc and Maven bring, it feels different. It's like they're almost a separate pair as their own. It's like, it's not one is better than the other. They cast the same games, but they have their own kind of dynamics between each pair of them. So whether you have one over the other, you're still thinking, yeah, but I want the other one as well. It's like you want to kind of have your cake and eat it and have both of them in there, because last season having those pairs, it was such a solid foundation for COD last year. It felt like having those guys with the charisma and the personality that they bring to the game, because it's not just, obviously you watch it for the gameplay, but the casters play a huge role over the teams that you tune into and some of the series that you watch. I know Lando and Studdy, as good as they are as well, they catch a lot of stick just because of personal preference. And casters in general, you have people that like you have people that hate you. So it's like, I was about to say Merv and Macon. Merc and Maven, they don't seem to have anyone that dislikes them as a pair. So to not have them in, it's like, oh man, you're probably going to lose a huge chunk of the fan base if they're not in it.
And they've done them dirty as well, man, because they literally were tweeting about this like days ago, and the kickoff's on Friday. So they've left it really late to even like get in touch, and you know they weren't going to reoffer them contracts. That conversation should have happened a while ago, which leads me to believe that yet again there probably isn't very organised for this weekend, and it's just, you know, another kind of going to be another weirdly shambolic kind of season. So you know, I don't know. They're freelance, so they're not contracted, so there's no obligation to tell them in a certain period of time. But for God's sake, like, give the fellas a chance to go and find other work as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It is like, I have this argument all the time with people who don't understand esports at all, and they're like, oh, it just seems like an easy job and it's just whatever. I'm like, no, most of these people, if they're not players, they're freelancers. They have to go and find their own work. There's a million people doing it who are very good at it, and it's incredibly difficult. And then you've got an even more rigorous level of difficulty when it's trying to make it as a player and a streamer, because, you know, there's literally millions of people doing it at a very high level.
Well, that's the thing as well. Like, I mean, this is their livelihood. This is their living for those guys. So to be left in the dark, from what it seems like they've been saying on Twitter, and the fact that they've not really heard anything. So it's like you mentioned, they've not really had the availability to be able to go out and find work because they haven't really been given a definitive answer. Because if they start looking for work and then they go, oh, hang on a minute, you're with us, why are you looking for work? And then obviously that relationship, especially in the business, can like potentially break down because it's like, oh, you're supposed to be committed to us and committed to COD. But now they're kind of left in this weird limbo stage where it's like they don't really know what's going on, what their next thing around the corner is. And I do feel bad for them because, like I say, this is their life for a huge chunk of it. Whether it's like just occupation and income combined, it's a huge part of them. You see it when it comes across when they cast the game and they talk about the game on Twitter and even in streams and stuff. They're obviously so embedded into the roots of Call of Duty now that it feels really harsh on them to not be giving them an update on where they sit.
Yeah, I mean, it's deplorable, really. They should have been told like ages and ages ago that they probably weren't going to get re-picked up, been given the chance to go and find other work and you know, build their calendar up for the year so that they can, you know, ensure that they can continue earning money and at least maybe make that transition. Because if they told them early enough, they probably would have been able to make quite a successful transition over to Halo, which I'm sure is already saturated as it is. But you know, it's such a shame. You know, Merc might have been able to jump onto streaming and just, you know, made more of a go of that. So it's a shame really that they've been left in the lurch a little bit, and that it's so close to the Kickoff Classic, and you know, potentially as viewers we're going to be, you know, left with obviously we're nowhere in good hands with Miles and Chance, but it's just, you know, where are we with the other casters at the minute? So I know it's a good opportunity if you're Orlando or Study. It's a great opportunity to embed yourself, improve how you do your you know, your casting and how you approach your craft. It's a great opportunity for them, and I think there's 2 other casters that have been picked up. Or
I know Alley Cat's coming. I know Alley Cat's one that's come in. I haven't really seen much of what she does.
Which again is a weird one because there was literally like Lottie was doing a great job.
Yeah, well, I mean, now she's gone to Halo, isn't she? So, I mean, it's like, I beg, I swear to God, if Halo pick up Merc and Maven, I'm going to be fucking fuming. I swear to God, that's like leaving your rival club to go elsewhere. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'll still enjoy Halo and probably watch it anyways because I like the game in general, but to have it go from COD over to Halo, I mean, if you're Halo and you're seeing 2 of the people who have a huge following on COD aren't getting picked up, you're thinking, we'll pick them up, 100%. And all of a sudden you pick up the huge chunk of fans that come with them and bring them to Halo. It seems almost like a no-brainer, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know obviously we've seen a lot of top AM players make that transition over to Halo, so I just think there's enough juice in Halo for people who love COD to just go over and go, you know what, I've never given it a go, and they'll probably really enjoy Halo as well. It's great to play, it's great to watch. They've clearly done really well in terms of the rollout of the game and other stuff, so I don't know, maybe, you know, Maven and Merc make the way over there. We could be spending a lot of time on the Halo scene as well.
Yeah. Man, I think this might potentially be chalked, Pabs, to be honest, because I think this is the 8th time of trying, and I think it sounds as though it's a thing for players in Germany at the moment, not being able to physically get into the games and play, because they've just chalked it again.
I may have dropped you in it today, mate. I just realised I did say something today that may have dropped us in it.
What was it?
I said that we might cast the Grand National.
Oh God, yeah. And it's like we haven't even got the race started now.
No, I'm like, I did say, someone was asking me today, like, oh, would you consider doing anything different? I was like, actually, it's funny you should say that me and Major have been talking about casting the Grand National. It's like, yeah, we should defo do it.
Just give it a go, see how it pans out. I don't think it will go incredibly well, I'll be honest, but we could
play by play. I mean, how are you going to bring me into what is an 8 furlong race or whatever length it is? It'd be interesting.
Yeah, at least you can talk about the rotations quite frequently. It won't be a problem with that one. So.
It does sound like this game might be chalked though, bro.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really sure what's going on here. I say huge apologies, guys, for anyone who has tuned in to watch it, but it looks as though this one is... it looks as though they're going to have to try and sort out subs, but I think by the time they sort that out, I think it's going to be a much later start time. Let me just let them know. Just so I can triple check. I'm just going to let him know.
This
so
is
I
like
don't-
weird one, but weird things that I do when I'm on calls, right? You know, you've got your mic on a stand now. Like my pop filter is removable and it's quite
Right.
squishy.
Right.
So when I'm in Teams calls now, and I've found myself doing it on stream, I sometimes just rest my nose into it. It's so weird. It's so soft. It's like, yay!
It's like a pillow. You
I'm
just
so
fall asleep on it.
strange. Yeah, I'm such a weirdo at times.
Yeah, I'll just let the guys know. Yeah, unfortunately, guys, there's nothing we can do about that. It looks as though the boys of Prima ESport are just having issues, whether it be server issues or I'm not quite sure how it is. But the boys of FBG Melon all managed to get in, but Prima just for some reason couldn't connect into the lobby, which is a big shame because it was a game that we were looking.
Sledgehammer have they just literally said they'd released an update then, like a second ago.
Yeah, they had one literally just before the game started, because that's one I downloaded. So I'm begging they haven't killed the game.
But this is 16 minutes ago. An update has been deployed in Vanguard. That's 16 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So we've been trying since 7:05. So
No, because that
literally-
is the update. That is the one they were referring to.
I thought the updates killed it.
Matty put his Pablo. Okay, does he need a cuddle? We're just resting on the old. On the old. If I do it on the arm, I'll just face plant on the desk. That's not a great idea for me.
Oh man, this is already broken off. This arm, it was cheap. It's $9.99 from Argos. If anyone's interested.
You got an affiliation with him now.
Done. Literally, I was like, someone said to me, "Why don't you get like the £109 one from Road?" And I was like, "Well, if I buy like 11 of these, they'll last me like 4 years or something. So what's the point?"
Oh,
So
jeez.
I've got just buy these £9.99 ones from Argos because I'm a pure cheapskate.
All right, so because apologies, guys, this one is going to be chalked. Unfortunately, we won't be able to go ahead and cast the game because of the technical issues that the boys of Prima have had. So we're going to try and hop on a raid, and I'll take your pick. There's a few people on. Oh, should we go for? Let's go for CD. Oh no, we'll go Smudge. We'll go Smudge. I don't think I've raided Smudge in a while. Yeah, we'll get Mr. Smudge on one second. Let me make sure I type it in right. Did you see the thing that Lisa did the other day as well, Pabs? When she raided me when I was offline.
Yeah,
So
I'll be honest. Don't rip her over it because I've done it before. Now it's when someone's being hosted and you're just like, I used to do it to Mike Revolt all the time. I'd just raid his stream and he'd be like, "I'm offline, bro." I'm like, sorry. It's so weird. But no, it happens, mate. Don't stress.
yeah, but now let me just type chat. Please. Oh. Great. Yeah, so Ibs has just said no, sorry, Matty said you're free busy at 8:30. Yeah, Matty, apologies. Monday, Friday now, 8 o'clock start time is the latest I can do, unfortunately, buddy. But yeah, apologies.
For the same reason, I am now a gym bunny.
A
I
gym
have to
man.
be because I have got absolute boobs. So needs
Turn
to
them
be
into
done.
pecs, Pabs, you'll be all right. So,
That's what I'm trying. I'm trying, mate.
yeah, thank you very much, guys.
Listen,
Please hop on the raid.
Before you go, right, I've got to admit to one thing, right? So my wife went to Costco and brought back 30 giant cookies yesterday, and there are none today.
You're gonna have to go to the gym more often now, mate. You're gonna have to work them off. So yeah, huge thank you to everyone who has tuned in. Once again, apologies for everyone for not having a game. We should have one, fingers crossed, tomorrow, hopefully with no technical issues. But yeah, thanks again for everyone new and old. A big shout out to all the new followers and obviously all you guys returning in the chat. But yeah, go over to Smudge's channel, drop him some love, drop him a follow, and we will be back hopefully tomorrow with some unglitched Call of Duty action. That'll be the prayer. So yeah, cheers again, guys, and we'll catch you then.